Thanks, Molly. As co-chair of the programs committee this year with Mr. Cam Davis, we have been really excited about all the folks we've been able to bring in and the programs we've been able to set up, and this one is going to be an amazing one. We're very excited about it. So to kick it off, I'm going to introduce our moderator facilitator, but before I do that, I'm going to mention that Cam and I will be roaming the room with the microphone to take questions during the panel. So watch for the microphone, watch for us, or tweet your questions as well. So Cassondra Schindler, I probably don't have to do much of an introduction for most of you here because I feel like everyone knows Cassondra, but if you don't know about her, she is an amazing community supporter and leader and has been, and as an aside, a huge help on our programs committee this year. So many of the speakers that you have seen already this year have been in part due to Cassondra's connections and ability to bring those folks in. So huge thank you for that. Cassondra is a freelance community strategist focused on creating meaningful connections online and in the natural world. She emphasizes human behavioral, cultural context, and media habits to develop social strategies that focus on the intersection of values and purpose. In her role as a social media consultant, she believes that true opportunity lies in listening, understanding, and promoting community insights that will influence the brand's direction, guiding it toward ever more relevance and resonance. She has tons of amazing client experience. Many of you probably know her from Ignite Bend, Like Mine Bend, and serving on the Commute Options Board of Directors, but she's also worked on Adobe and IBM and Odell Brewery, Old Mill District, Visit Bend, and another lengthy list of other clients. I'm hoping she'll contribute today too. She'll be facilitating and moderating, but because she has such good information to share, I'm sure she'll be answering some questions as well, and she'll introduce the rest of the panel to you. Welcome, Cassondra.
Hello, everyone. So what we're going to do is, one by one, I will introduce our panel members, and they'll give a brief discussion. Some have visual presentations, and others do not. So I'd first like to introduce Jesse Felder. He is a local businessman and entrepreneur. Jesse is a technophile. He attended a computer camp at 8 years old, and ever since then has been engaged there. He's been kind of a geek lifelong, but he has a ton of interests that he follows. And he kind of stumbled upon social media and entered into it as a way to market his businesses. And he actually brings experience marketing multiple businesses in the world of social media. And so I think he brings a very valuable perspective, first of all, as somebody that's doing it themselves, and also somebody that's managing multiple brands. So please give a warm welcome to Jesse Felder.
Thanks, Cassondra. I don't have a presentation. I'll leave that to the experts, John and Brenda. I'm sure have some information they can present that way. I can tell you a little bit about myself. I started 2 companies. I've been in Bend about a little over 10 years. And the first company I started was Felder & Company, an investment advisor here in Oregon. I basically manage the investments for a handful of high net worth families. I've been doing that for, on my own here in town for a little over 10 years. And that was really my entry into social media was through Felder & Company. In around 2007, 2006, some of my friends who were active traders in the markets started switching over from instant messaging to Twitter. And so I got on Twitter in early 2007, and like a lot of people do, you hop on there and you say, what is this? What do I use this for? How do I communicate with people? And it took a little while to get used to it, but I quickly discovered as a news source and also as a way to take control of your personal branding, Twitter is a very valuable resource. Then a few years ago, I started Cat 6 Video Game Lounge, which is basically like a modern video game arcade down in the Old Mill. And quickly discovered that, after trying a bunch of different ways of advertising and promoting the business, that social media was one of the most cost-effective, not just cost-effective, but effective ways for me to reach our customer base, communicate with them, and get them involved in the business. So that's basically where I'm coming from, and I hope I can provide some information to you guys that helps you with what you guys are working on. So.
Thanks, Jessie. I would also next like to introduce Brenda Speirs. Brenda is Queen Bee at Buzztag, and she'll be telling you more about what they do at Buzztag and how they help their clients with social media. But another thing I'd like to tell you about Brenda, she grew up in the hospitality industry, and that really shines through. And we were just talking briefly about how understanding social media has really helped her to realize how the embodiment of hospitality and finding a place for everyone at the table is something that she really finds deep pleasure in doing. Brenda has a very warm nature. She has 2 sons and 2 daughters, and her husband Lyle, who you might be familiar with. They're all very active. But I get the mothering nature. I think it extends to everyone. And if you follow her in the social space, you kind of get this nurturing quality about her. It's a real pleasure to introduce Brenda Speirs, who's going to speak about Buzztag now.
Well, hello, thank you for having me. And I'm going to try and scoot over here so I can see what I'm talking about. So I'm Brenda Speirs from Buzztag, and we are a company that provides technology communication systems. We work with small businesses, medium businesses, and then we also kind of cross over into the high-tech Fortune 500 company atmosphere. So what that means for me is that I get to work with people who know absolutely nothing about social media at all, and I also get to work with people who have a grasp of it, they do it a lot, but they just need some help with strategy and understanding how to better communicate what they want to do. Working with high-tech companies, I get to do a lot of events, I get to do some behind-the-scenes kind of ghost tweeting and coordinating of, promotions, things like that. So that's kind of my overall overarching social media experience. So we consult with them about online, social media, promotional, and technology strategies and how it all ties in together. So since a lot of people here already have so much experience, but yet there are a few people that really don't know much about social media at all, I just wanted to kind of go on a really low level and just kind of come back to basics and what this communication is really all about. So I did a little Google search and, put social media in, and you get 100 different definitions of it. And in the end, it's social media. What is it? It's people having conversations online. So who uses social media? Even people that think they don't use social media actually participate in it in some fashion or another. So everyone is involved in it, whether they realize it or not, and everyone can participate in it, and that's the fun thing for me. So if you kind of go way back in time, this is the first form of social media. Everybody's sitting around the campfire, telling stories, talking, interacting, drawing each other out, and communicating. So 4 simple things to remember. Listen. Even if you're afraid to jump into the water and experience Twitter, especially Twitter, I think that's the biggest fear factor for people, just get in and observe. Be a voyeur. Just kind of watch what's going on, see if you can kind of figure it out. There's a lot of value in that. Engage. Start to engage with people a little bit at a time. And in talking with Cassondra the other day, I wanted to give her a little bit of credit here, but she said entertain. And you'll see the more you're on Twitter, you can really feel people's personalities come through. And that's an awesome piece of this for me as well. Respond, pay attention to what's going on, and then create things and share. And now you're giving back to the community that you're also viewing. So this is my favorite little social media slide. It's the conversation prism. And it's supposed to say, is this scary? I think is on the wall somewhere. But this is a 2-year-old diagram that was done. And there are a lot of different forms of social media on there. And it's multiplied every day since and gone way beyond what you see here. It continues to grow, but you don't have to pick everything. You just have to pick and choose, decide where you want to participate, and do it because this is not the answer. Okay? Thank you for having me, and I look forward to our panel.
Now I'd like to introduce you to John Dempsey. And you actually probably are already familiar with John. He's been active with the Advertising Federation as a board member. He's also on the planning committee. John is an analyst at American Licorice Company, and he'll be talking about social media. He's also very passionate about social media, so he'll have a great perspective working with a large brand that has, they're managing their accounts internally. But I think he'll also bring a ton of passion based on his own interest and pursuit in that arena. So please welcome John Dempsey.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, part of this social media panel. It's great to see so much turnout and so much passion for social media and interest. And I think we have a lot of good ideas going around in this community. And so it's cool to see a bunch of people out here. What I want to do first is get things started. I have to use my notes here. Get things started with the engagement. We at Red Vines, we have a lot of engagement going on already. So if you want to write any messages to the @RedVines Twitter handle with the @BITE hashtag, you can kind of see what our level of engagement is, and we'll kick this social media conversation off the right way. So American Licorice is a pretty old company. We were founded in 1914. Our current CEO is the great-grandson of the founder. And while we've been marketing licorice for nearly 100 years, we're kind of not necessarily what you would call early adopters in the marketing scene. We didn't even have our first TV ad until 2008. I guess you could say we were waiting to see if the medium took off. But while we're not necessarily known for our TV commercials, we are really working to raise the bar in social media, and we want to sort of share the great success that we've had in gaining earned media, getting brand advocates out there who are extending the conversation about our brands every single day. Today I really want to share some of the key insights that we've found in our short journey into the social web, and hope to give everybody, all the marketers here, some ideas, some insights as far as what we've learned, and hopefully you can bring that back to the social engagement that you're having, or help start your own. So one of the biggest challenges is garnering support, organizational support towards the social web. And you need to get past those entrenched practices and the fear of the unknown. Managers in the field are often afraid of how much time social media will take up in the day. IT is afraid of viruses. HR is afraid of, the legal ramifications and corporate branding. And PR can be afraid of getting off of the message. And it's crucial to understand the challenges that you're presenting to an organization, and you need to, work within the policies and the culture of the organization to be able to, engage in that social media. You have to educate that consumer sentiment is all around. It's pretty overwhelmingly positive, especially when you're talking about candy. But the idea is that there's a lot of love out there, and you just need to jump right in. So the first thing is to establish a protocol. Before you can unleash your associates onto the web, you need to put a policy in place that can dictate how your company's representatives will be interacting online. According to eMarketer, as of last February, over 69% of companies in the US had no social media policy in place. And even if you're not actively posting or producing content on behalf of the brands, you can bet that your associates are out there looking on their personal Facebook or Twitter pages and affiliating themselves with the company in one form or another on the web. And without some sort of policy to dictate how what's acceptable in terms of company blogging or posting on a blog, personal or company Facebook pages, etc., you don't have any set of standards to really hold the employees accountable to. Establishing this policy with all the key stakeholders, securing manpower, whether that's working with somebody inside the company or hiring an outside resource, and clearly identifying the goals is really important when you're starting up your social engagement. The next is to know your audience. We've undertaken extensive research in the studies of the realm of consumer and shopper segmentation. We're working with an internal consumer research specialist and outside resources, and we realized that, you know, the consumer segments that have emerged from our brand-specific research, they have very different attitudes and behaviors towards the messages that are, you know, that are coming out, and that we need to market to them completely differently. You need to be careful to understand the difference between who is buying your products and who is hanging out on your Facebook page. In our case, it's primarily moms who are picking the products up off of the shelf, but it's going to be their 13 to 24-year-old daughters who are hanging out on our Facebook. Based on their age, they're more likely to respond completely differently to different marketing messages, and it's crucial that you find the appropriate voice for the audience in any given channel. A good social marketer really can get a feeling for the right tone and voice by hanging out for a while and then listening and then engaging when it's appropriate. At American Licorice, we know that our consumers really define our brand. User-generated content is the name of the game for us. We have Facebook contests that are geared towards creating fan art. We have a Tumblr blog that's used to repurpose fan art and user-generated content, and our Twitter handle is retweeting all sorts of funny things that our consumers put out there. And user-generated content is really important to us in our social media. The Sour Punch Up the Video is a great example of that. It's a contest that we held on our website, on our Sour Punch website, and it encouraged Sour Punch lovers to punch up a scene of one of their favorite movies that engaged a Sour Punch theme. So I want to show you an example here of the winner. This is based off of Enter the Dragon. It's by an 11-year-old kid, and we really feel like it represents the brand really, really well. So I'm not sure how to play this bad boy. It's that bottom one, yeah. So it's this 11-year-old kid, and we had UCLA film school students submit, really high quality videos, but this irreverence, this excitement that it, engages the brand, it really represents the brand really well. Go ahead and pause it. Let's stop it. So, that type of user-generated content is gold. It advocates the brand in a way that the company never could, and it's something that kind of creates a community for the rest of the consumers who are out there on the social web. Thank you. One of the biggest things that we're doing with our social media is getting strategic. We're going to where the conversation is taking place. We're really listening and understanding who the audience is, and we're trying to, most importantly, add value to the conversation and the overall experience. The iCampout is a great example of this. Our consumer communications manager went down to the home Apple store, Steve Jobs' Apple store in Palo Alto, for the iPhone 4 release. And this is, the iPhone 4 release is a humongous event for, the web and, kind of this realm that we're trying to get involved in. And so he went out and started handing out Red Vines trays and Grapevines trays and all this product for free to these bloggers and technophiles who are sitting on the, the sidewalk all night hungry. And they were so appreciative and so happy that we, had this engagement. We're giving out this free content. And they felt like it was an authentic and really, valuable thing. And so they started tweeting about it and posting on the social media. And you can see this spike. It was just a few months after we really started our social media. And there was a tremendous spike in the engagement. And that's something that you just can't buy. So the idea is to get involved in something that's bigger than yourself, to help kickstart your social media in a way that, you can't do. I mean, being a part of this iPhone release and getting involved in that conversation really helped get our social media going. Whenever possible, you really want to integrate your various social media efforts into a site. So as each channel has a different sort of purpose and connects a different cross-section for the brand community, you can see here that we've created a custom tab on our Facebook page, and whenever visitors come in, there's an arrow that shows them, to like Red Vines on Facebook, and then at the bottom we have custom tabs that link to our Twitter account and the Red Vines drawing contest for 2010, and the Crazy Delicious blog on Tumblr. And each channel offers a completely different experience with the brand, but we're calling it out when everybody is in there at peak engagement on Facebook. The next thing is to listen and then deliver. One of the most common questions that we get on our Facebook and Twitter is quite simply where people can find Red Vines. And if you're in Oregon or California, you can't really throw a rock without finding a Safeway or a gas station that has Red Vines. But on the East Coast, while we do distribute in all 50 states, sometimes it's a little harder to find. So we listened to this repeated request, and so what we did is we delivered a product locator tool up on our Facebook page. And so, this is an example of listening to what the consumers are saying and then providing that content. We've also, created a new point of sale on social media. So driving consumers into the retail stores is great, but creating a point of sale within our social media sites themselves can be even better. We brought our online candy store to the Facebook page, and the idea is to provide an opportunity for consumers to purchase the product, again, at that peak level of engagement with the brand and the associated content. And the theory is that designing a store on the platform of Facebook, Facebook is a very safe and familiar site to most of the people engaging in social media. And so by bringing the store to them, they don't have to click offline or click to another, one of our proprietary sites. It just makes things a lot easier. And the order fulfillment is the exact same through Amazon, but it lives in that very familiar, comfortable realm for making things easier for the people on the social media. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. While consumer attention is shifting to the online, we're still integrating with our traditional PR to drive awareness of our social campaigns. We're consistently reaching out to our trade publications, consumer tech blogs, and broadcast media to keep our brands and our consumer communications front of mind. Here's another video. I'm not going to torture you with loading it again, but one of the greatest challenges is how to add value to the conversation taking place, and the best way is to create interesting content. So this is just a snapshot, but this is a really low quality video that we shot with an iPhone of of how Red Vines are made in the manufacturing plant, because we were getting a lot of requests that people on social media want to go into the plant. They want to see how Red Vines is made. So with the things like YouTube and kind of these channels that are allowing lower quality videos to be viewed, this isn't something that we would ever put onto a TV commercial, but it's relevant for the requests and it's appropriate for the channel. And so now we're doing things like manufacturing plant tours for our Facebook and Twitter fans and bringing them in. But this is something that when we took the video and posted it, got something like 100,000 impressions. And it's just a short video of these crazy robots loading the Red Vines. And people want to see stuff like that. The next thing is social media is a great method to engage with your target audience. And we call it engaging in the hashtaggery, engaging in the conversation. This is an example of a blogger's social media conference that was occurring on the East Coast, and some of these mommy bloggers were talking about how they couldn't find Red Vines on the East Coast. And so we saw this and we engaged in the conversation. It was some playful banter. And you can see that the response from this Twitter handle, All Things Phaedra, kind of puts it into perspective. This is really valuable. She liked that we were listening and getting involved in the playful banter, and more importantly, we got the product in front of a lot of really influential bloggers. And the thing is we know who our influential bloggers are. We know who our audience is. And so if we can engage with them and get them, our content out there, and it's got to be appropriate and it has to be relevant. But if you're engaging with these influential people, that reach just extends that much further. And this kind of feeds into what we like to call the network effect. And that's, this is another example. This is a Twitter message that we posted to Thrifty Chic Mom, and it's just basically a message that shows what our products are, tells her about our products, has a link to our website. And because of this network effect, this one message went out to over 25,000 people because of her communities and the communities that her followers are involved in. It was retweeted and replied, and just the dynamic effect of how social media works, you can extend that reach. So some of the new trends that are coming up is mobile, and people are more and more, purchasing smartphones and moving away from their computers at their houses and engaging in their environment and with brands. These are just a few statistics about how people really feel like their brand should be in the mobile realm, and we're seeing that that's the newest channel for interaction for brand enthusiasts. And so, the trends, it's going to be at 109.5 million people by 2015 will have a smartphone. I'm sure the majority of people here have smartphones. It's a trend that we see is increasing. So with that comes increasing brand interaction. And so a QR code or a barcode scanner is a great example. We found that the majority, it's not just, teeny boppers that are scanning, going out there with their smartphones and scanning. These are people ages, 35 to 44, and they're looking for important information. And so if you can provide them the opportunity to engage and have that information, then it's going to just increase your brand reach. Location-based technology, location-based marketing is another one. This is an example of Foursquare. All of these mobile interactions are becoming increasingly important to consumers. Checkpoints is the location-based service that we're currently getting involved in. We've purchased a bunch of checkpoints that we allocate amongst our brands and amongst our retailers, and then you can go out, scan, a Red Vines jar, and you're getting, you're actually in the aisle. So you're at the point, our consumers are at the point where they're at the highest, again, peak of engagement with the brand. They've picked it up off the shelf. They know where it is in the store. They're scanning the barcode, and they're getting information that's important to them. Coupons, they're getting product information. It takes them to a product connection page where they can go to our Facebook. Again, it's integrating all of these different types of social media initiatives that we have and really providing a lot of information to the consumer. We really feel like mobile is going to be something that's very big and important, and there's a lot of ways to interact with that. So I want to thank you all for hearing my short presentation on what we're doing at American Licorice. I'm very excited to be up here with this esteemed social media panel, and I hope I've given you some insights and got some questions rubbling it around in there so that we can hopefully help you out. So thank you very much.
All right. So we are watching the tweet deck here. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. We've pulled a few that we've worked into some to get started. And also, if you have a question and you're here and you want to just jump up, I know Darrell and Cam are looking for you. So I thought I'd just kick it off, and we'll kind of go through whomever wants to answer these questions. But first of all, and this was touched on a little bit, but the question of why should you care about social media? I think people are still asking that question. So John, would you like to give your...
Why should you care about social media? Again, there's a lot of brand and communities that are out there on the social web, and not everybody is going out on Facebook and clicking like on the Red Vines page, but there is a lot of opportunity for engagement. Some things that we're doing on a bigger national scale is retweeting funny content, and that's fun for consumers to see, and it's fun for other people to see. But something on a local scale is an example I can think of is if a restaurant has some sort of social media engagement, and there's a customer who's unhappy and posts it out there on Twitter or on Facebook that they had a bad experience. This is somewhere you can get in and sort of mitigate that bad experience, maybe provide an opportunity where someone's walking out the door with a bad experience and get them to walk back in with a better sort of image of what your brand represents. That conversation is going on out there. It's just a matter of how much you want to get involved in it. So,
nice. Brenda, this is probably a good one for you. How do you get started in social media?
The biggest thing, I guess just try it. Don't be afraid to sign up for Facebook, sign up for Twitter. And the wonderful thing for me about Twitter is that you don't have to participate right away. So get on there, just take a look at it, do some research on how to do Twitter on Google, learn about the hashtags, learn the language, and just step up to the plate and start doing it. The longer you wait, the further away and the harder it gets.
I think we can keep that. Okay. This one is going to go out to Jesse, but please feel free if others have. What platforms do you consider essential? And actually, Shannon Hinderberger has a question. Are blogs still an important part of social media?
Well, yeah, I think blogs are very important. I mean, there's only about 140 characters on Twitter, so if you have something longer to say, your blog is the place to do it. I also want to say, John made a good point. I think, a lot of businesses don't realize that you already have a social media presence. People are talking about your business on Facebook or Twitter, and it's whether you're going to take control of that or interact in that at all. So I think, a lot of businesses are surprised to go on Facebook and discover, their fans have created a page for their business that they can go like, and the information on there may not be the information they want to provide or whatnot. So you already have a social media presence. It's whether you take control of it or not. I think, which services are relevant. I mean, Twitter, Facebook, blogging, I do think is still very relevant, and that's, those are the big boys right there.
And this is for anyone that wants to jump up, but how do you know which platforms provide value to your audience?
Yeah, I'd just say you have to know your audience. You have to know who they are, where they hang out, what they like to do, and tailor your messaging to that. So everything about social media still comes back down to knowing your business, knowing your customer, and understand how to market your product, your business, yourself.
There's a lot of questions about measurement and what are some favorite measurement tools, and associated with that, what are you actually measuring?
That's a great question, and that's one of the things that's hardest about, again, garnering organizational support is if we're investing all this time, what is this actually going to be doing for us? So measurement comes in quite a bit, and there's a lot of different measurement tools out there. It depends upon what platform or what channel you're working in. Twitter, any of the big platforms, Hootsuite, TweetDeck, typically have good measurement tools that you can take a look at. And what I'm looking for is the reach. Again, how much your message is reaching the rest of the community that you're interacting with. And again, if you tweet one message and it's retweeted, then that gets, it's that network effect. Clout is another great example of a measuring platform. It's typically free. You can go in and type in your Twitter handle or whatever, and you can kind of see where you fit. If you're working on Facebook, Momentous Media is a service that has a lot of great measurement and a lot of great engagement where you can sort of increase the engagement on the Facebook page and then measure how much you've actually had a response on that. So do you guys have any?
The other thing I was going to bring up is events. A lot of people doing events. If you use incentive items to draw people in, and so you have a measurement there. For an example, we've tweeted out at events to talk about maybe an iPad drawing. People have bracelets, a little silly bracelet that they have to wear. It has a little tag that tears off. They tear one of the tags off, they have to have 2 people come back before they're allowed to enter for the drawing. This enables the people throwing the event to get a touch on more of the audience that it's attending the event. It lets you collect names if you want to do that, and gives you a better reach within the event and understand who's actually coming by. So.
Any other, Jesse, are you using any measurement or metrics? What are you doing there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, John is obviously the expert on the real, quantitative metrics of measuring. I was going to say, in terms of how do you get started in measuring all that kind of stuff, just, John said, just jumping in and then listening. I think, Gary Vee talks about that a lot. He's a guy who's basically made a career on Twitter, and he says he uses it to listen. And so if you can find you know your customer base somewhere on Twitter or Facebook and just listen to what they're talking about. What are they doing? Then you can start to figure out how to engage. And then once you do engage, listening to any of the feedback that you're getting back, it's less of a hard metric, but it's by seeing how many people retweet your tweets and are responding to your tweets, and once you start getting that kind of engagement, that's one of the best ways I've found to measure it.
So that actually kind of moves us into content strategy. And so what are you, when you are in these social spaces and you're looking at what's traveling, what has reach as far as messaging, how does that influence your content strategy? And I'll put that to you.
For us at Red Vines, a lot of the content strategy is, again, this user-generated content. And so Twitter is another great example of having somebody, post a funny thing or some sort of love for Red Vines. We just continue to retweet messages like that and get people, get their content out there. People like to be associated with brands, and they love having a brand on Twitter interact with them. So a lot of ours is very user-generated content. But what I think is important is making sure that you're creating content that the audience that you're the realm that you're working within finds interesting. And so if it's on a local level versus a national level, again, getting out there and listening to what your audience is kind of saying, that's kind of where I think the most important content comes from. Because if you're just putting out there stuff that nobody cares about, then what's the point,
The other thing with social media is the shareability. I think it's very natural for people to feel proprietary to their brand or their information or their content or something. And the most successful people in the social space are the people who are sharing what they're learning. And that sets them apart. They become the thought leaders. They become the go-to people that other people want to turn to for their expertise. So, don't be afraid of letting go of that. Do some experimentation. Throw a few things out, see what comes back, see if people are paying attention, see if you get hits, and then follow a path, right? So if you have consistency, people know what to expect from you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it really depends on, in terms of content. I use social media very differently for Felder & Company than I do for Cat 6. For Felder & Company, it's a professional service that's aimed towards a very small group of people. So I'm not really marketing to a broad group. I use it basically to establish my expertise in the field and to provide valuable information to people who follow me on Twitter. So I share a lot of links and that sort of stuff, just valuable content about investments in the markets and stuff that I think people would like to read. That's garnered me a pretty good following on Twitter. In terms of Cat 6 in content, it's totally different. It's tween boys, so it's what do these guys want to talk about? What kind of video games are they interested in, and how do I get them to engage and on Facebook? So that sort of thing.
We often get questions about automating posts across platforms. So using different channels as a distribution method for a blog post. So you are then automatically pushing that out to Twitter and Facebook and any other LinkedIn, any other place that you may be. What is your recommendation on that, John?
I'm sorry, the recommendation on automating posts. Yeah. I think automating posts, you need to be careful with what type of content you're putting out on different channels. And, in my presentation, I said that, each channel has sort of a different, it has different ways of reaching and different engagement. Like Jesse said, Twitter has 140 characters, so you want to be putting out content that's appropriate for Twitter, whereas Facebook is more visual and you can, interact with your friends on that. So I think you need to be careful. It's okay to be putting out different messages across all platforms, or the same message across all platforms, but you really need to be making sure that if your voice is the same, that the content provides a unique experience in each channel, because otherwise somebody can read your Twitter page or your Facebook page and get the exact same thing as on your blog or on your website. And that's not really what you're trying to do. You want to have different types of engagement in each of these different channels.
I know for me, I get bummed out if there's too much automated feed going across platforms. The other piece of this is 90% of people, once they like a page on Facebook, don't ever visit it again. So the only opportunity you have to engage with them is through posts that you're putting that will end up on their wall. If you automate on a regular basis, Facebook will automatically not post that onto people's walls. So Facebook recognizes the difference between a machine putting it in or a real person interacting with the audience. So overall, resoundingly, I'd probably say no. I hate them.
I did not know that. I thought, that's why you guys are the experts. Yeah, you know, I think, you know, Twitter, you make a blog post, and to share that information, Twitter and Facebook are a great way to get the word out that, hey, here's a new blog post. But it's a very fine line between sharing that and spamming it out. You know, if you do it too much, you obviously start spamming people, and then they say, okay, you're worthless. I don't want to read your feeds anymore. So yeah, I would, you know, that's you got to be careful about putting it out that way.
So a lot of talk about community lately in social media, and I'm curious, how do you cultivate community? There was a talk actually recently at South by Southwest, and it was, I don't want to be friends with your hemorrhoid cream. So if you are selling hemorrhoid cream, how do you deal with that? How do you find and cultivate community?
Is there anybody selling hemorrhoid cream here? Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think the community, it's easy for a brand like Red Vines to engage in community because there's a community of consumers. But, you know, what we're doing is kind of helping to make it fun. You know, we set up Team Twizzlers versus Team Red Vines, you know, and engage that in the social web. So that's, you know, building community around things like that is really easy. Something that I've seen that may not be as easy that is going pretty well is WD-40 has a pretty interesting, and I don't know if anybody was here at Ben Webcam that saw that presentation, but they've been doing a lot of really interesting things in terms of building, you know, the community around something that you would just assume is a household item. I think building community is really, again, going out and listening to the type of content that's being put out there by your target audience, and then helping to facilitate creating a common theme that you can all sort of revolve around. And Twitter is a really great example of a channel that does that well because it's really quick, you know, spurts of information that are coming out, and everybody, you know, is reading other people's Twitter posts. And, you know, if you can create some sort of commonality between everybody, then that, you know, that's the basis of community. I don't know, you know, on the more local level, there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening around Ben, and we've developed a community on the social media channels that kind of develop around those. So you can see, even in our own, I mean, AdFed is a community. We all gather around the sort of information that these AdBite, you know, events sort of display. And so it's easy. We all know what a community represents. It's just transitioning to that social, you know, onto those social channels.
I think your example of WD-40 is terrific. And again, going back to Webcam, they have a product where people buy it and it sits on the shelf for years. You can probably remember this last time you bought your WD-40 can about 5 years ago, and it's still there. So they created a program to draw in a community, and they send out tips every day, multiple times a week or something, and it's tips of what other uses you have for WD-40. And overall, it's knowing your audience, knowing what appeals to them, but I don't think I'd want to take the hemorrhoid job myself.
Although I've been told it works wonders for the circles under the eyes, so. I heard that. I don't. Previously, there's a couple of questions that have come through, and I think it's a good one. How do you deal with flamethrowers? You know, the people that are just harshing on your brand. And then related to that, do you have or do you recommend a social media crisis plan, and what goes into that?
Flamethrowers, I mean, the internet really provides a sense of anonymity for people to go out and bash brands or, you know, things that people are doing. And so that's kind of one of the darker sides of the internet. Social media has a part of that, but everybody kind of has a face, you know, in social media, at least unless you're creating, you know, ulterior sort of personas. But flamethrowers, I think it's interesting. You know, I've seen some brands that engage with flamethrowers by, you know, getting into like online quarrels, and I think that's just terrible, terrible use of that channel. So, you know, one of the things that we, you know, utilize Twitter and all these channels for to combat flamethrowers through red vines is just kind of making it a fun thing. You know, you can't really get too serious when you're, you know, handling these trolls or these people out there that are just saying all these nasty things. So if it's like a really, really, you know, obscene, horrible comment on our Facebook page, then we'll just remove it, because that's not what we're trying to embody anyway. But if there's somebody who goes on to our Facebook set, you know, and Facebook and says something about Twizzlers being better or whatever their comment will be, then we'll just, you know, kind of engage in a playful manner and kind of take a less serious approach to it. But we're trying to help, you know, we're trying to engage with them and show them that there's a real person behind this Facebook page, behind this Twitter, and we're not just some brand or some company that's, you know, we're real people that are engaging here. And so if you kind of help people understand that, typically by the end of the conversation, everybody leaves amiably, and it's, you know, dealing with it in an appropriate, relevant manner, I think, is the best way to go about it.
Do you have a crisis plan?
A crisis plan. You know, I'm not familiar with any crisis plan that we have right now. Maybe some of the other panelists can talk to that point.
So on the flamethrower subject, I think it's really important to have like a best practices posting on your page. If you're a smaller company or something, smaller fan page, it may not be necessary, but someone larger with a more public persona, someone with a larger product or something, you should have best practices so that if someone violates those, you have a reason to take that post down right away. I have had other people who don't like what someone has said and they want to just remove the comment, and I think that you kind of strip the experience when you try to control it in that way. You have to let it go on. If it's, you know, something that you can jump in on and hopefully correct, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity. You really should, you know, as far as the crisis plan, you can have things in place, but the reason it's a crisis is because no one's really thought of it before. The best thing you can do is deal with it immediately. If you haven't already thought of it ahead of time, you might want to get a PR agency involved, and they will help you to craft your dialogue moving forward. But, you know, in the flamethrowers, I think the community a lot of the time, too, will help you out. People recognize idiots online, and they will call them out on it. So.
I was just going to say, you know, in terms of the building community and the flamethrowers, I think as soon as you kind of put a technology medium in between people, they kind of forget how to manage a lot of these, you know, interpersonal problems that we come up with on a regular basis. And I think if you just think of, okay, what if I removed the technology medium? How would I handle this in person? And, you know, I mean, basic customer service, I'm going to kill them with kindness. If somebody's upset, how can I make them happy? You know, and with building community too, I mean, it's not that difficult. I think you just think of, what if there wasn't the technology in the way? How would we create a group of people that want to talk about something they all are interested in? And so when you think of it in terms of remove the technology, I think the answers become pretty apparent.
So we have only a few minutes left for the first part of this. Is there any questions in the audience? Cam's going to hit you with the mic here.
What about sales? Have you noticed any bottom dollar? If so, what percentage of social media contributed to it?
Yeah, sales is, you know, that's a really big question when it comes to social media, is how is this affecting my bottom line? You know, it's an interesting, we haven't figured out exactly any way to measure how sales are being affected by our social media presence. You know, it could be, what we're essentially trying to do to affect sales is build up this social media presence online that we can then take to our retail partners and say, look how much of a presence we have. Let's do some partnerships. So we'll go to Target, and the Checkpoints program is a great example of that. And we can take this to Target and say, you have a great online presence. We have a great online presence. Let's combine those two and sort of build an online presence that work together. In terms of how it's how many Red Vines trays sales are spiking because of a conversation on Twitter, that's hard to manage, or that's hard to measure, but what we do see is that the reach is extending into markets that we don't necessarily have a lot of brand recognition in. And so if we're, the East Coast is very heavily Twizzler territory, and so if we can kind of get more people, it's true, if we can get more people to be discussing, Red Vines and get that, that brand kind of into the conversation on the East Coast, then we can sort of help to develop, that brand pull through some of our retailer partners. So it's tough to measure that in our industry, the consumer packaged goods industry. It may be different. Jesse might have some great, pointers on that. Not to call you out or anything. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Does this one work? Or?
It's there. Jesse, go ahead. Jesse, it works.
Okay, well, I got this one now. I was going to say, in terms of Cat 6, I imagine it's helped us in sales. I don't know how to measure that. Maybe I'll talk to John and ask him how to figure that out. But I can tell you that we built a website, and then we got on Facebook. I actually on MySpace originally, and just we're trying to find ways to create an online presence for the brand, even though we are just locally Bend. And it just started as one Bend location, and over the last couple of years, just because of our online presence has grown so much, and we've partnered with Major League Gaming and some of the other, national and worldwide, brands out there. We get multiple requests per week from all over the world inquiring about how to franchise a Cat 6, and so we're expanding into looking into how to create a franchising program and do that sort of thing. We created Video Game Venture to take advantage of that, and so I do know that side of the business without that online presence, wouldn't be there today. So.
I have a question for John real quick while I have the mic. You mentioned the camp out, that it was a great success for you guys. Could you then look at retail stores where your product is placed and say, look for bumps there?
I mean, yeah, that's a great example. Finding where we're having a big success with our social media and then going to that region and looking at the sales. There's a lot of different aspects that go into marketing candy, especially, it's rebates and it's different sort of deals at the retailer level as well. So to find a spike like that would be, it's getting very specific. What we could do, that's kind of, the idea is to have social media be a part of your entire marketing program. You think of it as a tool within the house of your marketing. And so hopefully that engagement, in that on those social channels is helping to develop, sort of this, the other marketing tools that you have. I don't know that we could specifically get down to that level as in terms of a spike. There's growth, and so we're seeing that as our social media reach is growing, our bottom line sales are growing, and we're trying to figure out what the correlation is, and that's part of why that's such a hard question, and that's why you're trying to gain, organizational support, is how do we figure out how to correlate, investments in social media and, bottom line sales.
I was going to say, too, kind of crowdsourcing. I read a great article recently about a company, and I can't remember their product specifically, but it was coming up to holiday season, big sale time for them, and they didn't really have a plan in place. They didn't have a specific sales sheet that they were going to post. So they just put the question out there to their audience and said, what do you want to see? What kind of pricing would you like? And resoundingly, people wrote back, specifically gave them items they were looking for, what type of pricing they were looking for. They didn't publish the pricing to the mass public. They kept it private between the people that were looking for it, and they wound up increasing their sales threefold over this promotion time. So don't be afraid to ask your people what they want and what they're looking for. And if you want sales ideas, Google it. Everything, someone somewhere has posted an idea that will ring true with you that you'll be able to glean some information from and hopefully have some success as well.
This is my first time hearing about the online candy store via Facebook. What is your success with that?
Success in terms of sales?
Yeah, have you made any?
Yeah, we've just enacted that, and so we're currently sort of measuring what sort of reach that's had. That's a really great question. Our retail sales compared to our online sales are, it's amazingly one-sided. It's all retail. But what we're seeing is that there's some, to be honest, there's some back-end issues. In terms of how we're in our deals with Amazon, in terms of how much you can purchase. So we're trying to hone that in to have, because basically you can't just go onto that site and buy 1 or 2 trays of red vines, unfortunately, because of the way that Amazon sends out orders. They send it out by the case, and so it's rare that we're seeing that, that amount of volume coming from one person, and we're not selling internationally. So we're seeing sort of a shift towards that engagement on the front end, but in terms of logistics on the back end, we're still trying to develop that part. But it's a great question. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. I'm just starting out. I'm clueless. Not much of a budget. I'm small potatoes. What's the best way for me to get a following on Twitter, Facebook, what have you?
No? Really, it's about establishing your presence and just get out there and share with the community, draw people in, and interact with people as they begin interacting with you. I don't think that there's any real simple formula where it's just going to happen overnight. It does take some time, and you have to cultivate that. You have to work at it. Jesse can talk about this. We brought it up in our meeting the other day, but there are things we automatically follow, and it automatically follows people, so then they follow you back. The numbers do not necessarily reflect success within your community. So it's more about who you're reaching and how you're engaging with them, and don't worry so much about the specific number, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing that helps too is to find companies in your industry, larger or smaller, that are doing a good job with it, and really pay attention to what they're doing, how they're doing it. For Cat 6, it's easy for me to see, who else my customers are following or liking on Facebook, and then see how they're engaging, and then, I can kind of adapt those things to my business and use them. I think, the first thing I would caution anybody is when you first start on these things is to listen and observe and really, learn before you just, jump in. I mean, once you do set up your accounts and stuff, absolutely. If your customers are engaging or people engaging, asking questions, that's great. Go ahead and engage back. But before you go out and just put out your entire, promotional offers and all this kind of stuff, you really need to find a strategy first. One of the biggest mistakes people make is by using a Twitter stream or something like that just to promote all the things that they're doing. And once you see something that's overly promotional or something, and it's not adding a whole lot of value, people don't really want to engage with that. So,
what's your company's name?
Well, I work at the Printing Post, but this is
Okay. I mean, the idea is what I would say is, again, set up a policy and set up some realistic, measurable goals that you want to attain. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is companies wanting, these amazing goals or these amazing figures, and they're unrealistic. I mean, just quite frankly. So set up a real policy and realistic goals that you want to attain. And then I would say, get a Facebook page, get a Twitter page, and integrate those. And if you have a website or are going to be creating a website, integrate all those things so that you have, that you can push it out to whoever your clients are. Start small within the community that you're really working in, work your social media strategy into your current marketing plan. You know, think of it again as a tool. It's not going to be the end-all be-all for connecting with people outside of your immediate community, but if you work it in as a measurable, realistic, goal-oriented tool as a part of your marketing program, then you can start pushing that out again to your smaller community, integrating some of the messages in the appropriate channels, but having the same voice. Something that's really great that I really appreciate as a personal, you know, Twitter poster or whatever is getting interesting information about you know, something that like a industry that's really interesting to me. So say design or advertising. So whatever industry you're in, if you come across interesting content or articles, being a source for that information can be something that's beneficial for your brand, and you know, it may be something that people then start to look to you as being, you know, the source of that type of information, and it's in your industry. And so again, that's an ideal situation. You need to take the steps that are appropriate. And so starting small, measurable, realistic, I think would be a great start.
The other thing too, it's really important in social media to understand it's not what you're saying, it's what you're paying attention to. So, you know, if you get on there and try to sell or just talk about your product, people take it as you shouting. They think you're yelling at them, they don't like it, they won't follow you, they don't want anything to do with it. But they will find you interesting and engaging if they like what you're interested in. So go on, look at articles, share anything interesting about news or crafts or art or, you know, different travel destinations, anything that's interesting to you, and you will attract the type of people that would normally gravitate to you, you know, at a party and in a room.
There's one question coming in from Twitter that comes from Sweet Pea Cole. What would you say the timeline is? How long will it take you when you're starting a new business in social media? So that kind of piggybacks on the last question. Expectation management.
I can start to help maybe possibly answer that question if there is an answer. You know, one of the things that is most important is what you're going to get out of social media is what you put into it. And so if you know, for example, I started a Twitter handle for myself like 3 years ago, and for probably 2 years there wasn't any activity whatsoever, and so I wasn't getting any followers. I just basically stopped using it. And so, you know, once I started using it and started really engaging and, you know, putting content out there and kind of figuring out what my voice was and how I wanted to interact with the rest of the people on Twitter, for example, you know, again, it's that how much you put in is how much you're going to get back. It has to be very interactive.
I think John's explanation was perfect, and I think it's really easy to get lost in the sea of data. So it's important to set a specific amount of time aside every day, and, you know, just block that off and don't let yourself get distracted by other things. Don't venture out. Don't waste 4 hours surfing the net and just throwing posts back out, because it can be a major time suck in the long run, and that's really not your end goal. So have a plan, set a time limit, and stick to your overall plan over time. But there's no magic formula. It doesn't happen overnight, and you really have to see what results you're getting from each type of interaction you have, and then continue to build on your success.
Don't get distracted on Facebook. That's a challenge. I can't remember, you know, I can't tell you how many times I go to Facebook with intending to post something, and you get lost in, you know, somebody's photos or whatever. I think it's impossible to, but you do your best, I guess. I think that in managing your time, you commit to a certain amount of time on a regular basis to create content and engage. But I think if you find that it's within your interests, it's very easy. The reason I first got interested in Twitter was I wasn't thinking about my brand or business or anything. I just wanted to be able to connect with some people on the platform that I wasn't able to connect with them anywhere else. On the telephone or email. But at the time in 2007, there were so few people on Twitter that when you actually message somebody, they'd message you back. And there's still a lot of that today. I was messaging back and forth with Barry Ritholtz, who writes one of the most popular finance blogs, the #1 finance-rated blog in the country, basically. And so to have that opportunity, I think when you find interest, it's very easy to make the time to engage and explore those things. So.
I think we're coming to the end of our first hour. There is a bonus session for people that are interested. There's lots of questions that we haven't been able to get to, and what I love is that I'm seeing other people answer and share with the hashtag. So please continue doing that. But also feel free, I think, John and Brenda and Jesse will be also looking at the hashtag and answering questions directed their way as well. Yeah, so open invitation to contact them with questions. Hope you're open.